The moment you finally tell yourself the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one moment in life that separates the life you pretend to live from the life you are truly meant to live, it is this, the moment you finally admit what you feel. Not what you should feel. Not what you're allowed to feel. Not what the world expects you to feel, but what is actually burning inside your chest at 2 a.m. when the noise of the world finally goes quiet. I remember sitting with a young man once, broken not because life had defeated him, but because he had never allowed himself to say the words, "I'm hurting." He thought courage meant hiding the wound. He thought strength meant smiling when the heart was cracking. And when I asked him, "Why don't you just say what you feel?" he said something I will never forget, "Because if I admit it, then it becomes real." And isn't that the truth for so many of us? We fear the truth inside us more than the storm outside us. We fear admitting we're tired, or afraid, or overwhelmed, or stuck, or lost, because we think honesty will break us. But my friend, the truth is the opposite. Honesty doesn't break you, it frees you. So today, I want to take you on a journey. A long, deep, emotional journey, through the heart of courage. Not the courage to fight wars. Not the courage to conquer mountains. But the courage to face the storm inside your own soul. Because until you master that, no success will satisfy you, no achievement will fulfill you, and no applause will silence the whisper within. Let's begin. The courage to feel without judgment. There comes a moment in every life where the heart whispers something the mind isn't ready to hear. It may whisper of pain you've avoided, dreams you've abandoned, or wounds you continue to walk around as if they were never there. And yet, even in that whisper, there is a truth powerful enough to change the direction of your life. If only you allow yourself to feel it without judgment. Most people don't struggle because they lack strength. They struggle because they refuse to feel what is already inside them. They have been conditioned to believe that certain emotions are wrong, that vulnerability is weakness, that honesty makes you fragile. But that belief is what keeps the soul in chains. Feeling without judgment is not about losing control. It is about regaining the parts of yourself you abandoned in moments of pain, shame, or disappointment. For years, many walk through life convincing themselves that emotions must be hidden to be survived. And so they bury their truth beneath layers of performance. The smile that hides the exhaustion, the calm tone that hides the heartbreak, the polite nod that hides the quiet scream within. But feelings, my friend, do not disappear just because you've learned how to hide them. They wait. They wait in silence, in tension, in the tightness of your chest, in the heaviness behind your eyes, in the restlessness of your nights. They wait for the day you finally turn inward and give yourself permission to feel. The courage to feel without judgment begins with a simple but profound acknowledgement. What I feel is real, not wrong, not dramatic, not too much, just real. Imagine a child who falls and cries. You do not tell the child, you shouldn't feel that. You lift them, you comfort them, you allow the emotion to pass through. But when the adult version of that same soul falls, they silence the cry. They shame themselves for needing comfort, for feeling hurt, for being human. And that self-judgment is what begins to fracture the heart from the mind. You become your own critic, your own suppressor, your own enemy, not because you are weak, but because somewhere along the path, you were told that strength means silence. True strength, however, is the opposite. Strength is the ability to stand inside your emotion without collapsing. It is the ability to say, I'm hurting, without believing that the hurt defines you. It is the ability to feel anger without losing yourself in rage. It is the ability to feel sadness without drowning in sorrow. It is the ability to feel fear without making it your identity. When you stop judging your emotions, you begin to understand that each feeling carries a message, a lesson, a direction. Your emotions are not enemies, they are guides, trying to show you where healing is needed, where boundaries must be placed, where truth has been denied. There is freedom in emotional honesty, a freedom many long for, but few allow themselves to experience. Imagine the weight that could lift from your shoulders if you stopped telling yourself that you should be stronger, happier, better, faster, unaffected. Imagine if you allowed yourself to feel without immediately correcting, dismissing, or condemning what arises. You would find clarity. You would find compassion for yourself. You would find the roots of your pain and the seeds of your healing. But more importantly, you would find yourself again, the self that has been buried beneath years of emotional self-judgment. Feeling without judgment also requires patience. Your heart will not open all at once. It will reveal itself slowly, carefully, sometimes painfully. But each time you sit with an emotion instead of silencing it, you reclaim a piece of your inner world. You begin to understand why you react the way you do. You begin to see patterns that once confused you. You begin to soften toward yourself instead of hardening. And in that softness, in that quiet acceptance, something remarkable begins transformation. Because emotions are energy, and energy must move. When you judge your feelings, you trap them. When you accept them, you release them. And the release is what creates space. Space for new thoughts, new strength, new understanding, new beginnings. This is why honesty with yourself is the beginning of every personal revolution. When you stop judging what you feel, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, you finally begin to grow. So the courage to feel without judgment is not just an emotional skill. It is the foundation of emotional freedom. It is the first doorway to healing, the first step toward wholeness, the first truth you must face before any transformation can begin. And once you step through that doorway, once you let yourself feel what your heart has been holding, you will realize you were never broken, just unheard. The courage to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. There is a moment in every life when the truth rises in your throat like a wave. A truth you have swallowed for too long, hidden for too long, apologized for too long. And in that moment, your heart beats louder, your hands tremble, and a small voice inside you says, "Say it," even if your voice shakes. This is the kind of courage that does not roar. It is not dramatic, it is quiet, trembling, human. It is the courage that defines the quality of your relationships, the strength of your boundaries, the direction of your life, and the peace of your inner world, because nothing in your life will ever align until your truth does. Most people spend years, sometimes decades, avoiding the truth they desperately need to speak. They stay silent in relationships where their heart is breaking. They stay polite in situations where their boundaries are being violated. They stay agreeable in conversations where their soul is disagreeing, and they smile while their spirit withers. They believe silence protects them from pain, conflict, rejection, or disappointment. But the truth is far more painful than the fear. Silence slowly suffocates the soul. You lose yourself one unspoken truth at a time. Speaking your truth is not about being confrontational or dramatic. It is about being authentic, about finally giving your inner world the voice it deserves. When you tell the truth, to yourself and to others, you reclaim the power you have given away. You reclaim your dignity, your self-respect, your emotional space. Many people think they struggle with anxiety, but often they struggle with unspoken truth. The body carries what the voice avoids. The mind stores what the heart suppresses. Your truth is not a burden, the hiding of it is. But let's be honest, speaking the truth is hard. It requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels dangerous. It means showing parts of yourself you usually protect. It means risking not being understood. It means risking disappointing others. It means risking losing what you were clinging to. Your voice shakes not because you are weak, but because the truth matters to you. And when something matters deeply, it trembles through you. To speak your truth, you must first accept something essential. You cannot control how others respond. You can only control whether you silence yourself. And every time you silence yourself, you break a little more. Your truth is not meant to be locked inside. It is meant to guide your choices, shape your connections, and protect your well-being. People say, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But what about your own feelings? What about the wounds you carry from all the times you stayed quiet? You matter too. The courage to speak the truth also exposes one of the greatest illusions we carry, the illusion that silence creates peace. Silence does not create peace. It only delays conflict while deepening pain. Real peace is built on clarity, honesty, and mutual understanding. When you speak your truth, you are giving life the chance to shift, heal, or transform. Even if the truth shakes everything around you, it is better than living in a reality built on things you no longer feel. Truth may cost you something now, but silence will cost you everything later. There will be moments where your truth is not welcomed. Some people benefit from your silence. Some people prefer the version of you that doesn't speak, doesn't question, doesn't challenge, doesn't feel. But you must decide what matters more, keeping others comfortable, or keeping yourself honest. Every time you speak up in the face of fear, you strengthen your identity. You learn to stand with yourself instead of abandoning yourself. And the more you speak your truth, the steadier your voice becomes. What once made you tremble eventually becomes the foundation of your confidence. Speaking your truth also deepens the connections that are meant for you. The right people appreciate honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. The right people want to know how you feel, what you need, what you dream, what hurts you. Your truth does not push the right people away. It brings them closer. And the wrong people will fall away not because you spoke, but because they were never aligned with you to begin with. When you finally decide to speak your truth, something extraordinary happens. You begin to breathe deeper, you walk lighter, your mind becomes clearer, your heart becomes quieter, your life feels more yours. You start making decisions with integrity rather than fear. You start setting boundaries without guilt. You start having conversations that matter instead of conversations that keep the peace. Your spirit begins to unclench, and you realize how long you have been holding yourself hostage. In the end, the courage to speak your truth is the courage to live fully. It is the courage to stop shrinking, the courage to stop pretending, the courage to stop betraying yourself. Because a life built on silence is not a life. It is a performance. And you were never born to perform. You were born to express, to feel, to stand tall in who you are. Your truth may shake when it first comes out, but that shaking is the sound of your freedom. The courage to stop hiding behind, I'm fine. There are 3 words that have quietly broken more hearts, destroyed more relationships, and drowned more souls than any tragedy. I'm fine. These words look harmless, polite, even responsible, but behind them often lies exhaustion, disappointment, confusion, loneliness, or hurt that has never been given room to breathe. I'm fine is the shield we hold when we're afraid to be seen. It is the mask we wear when we fear the weight of our truth will push others away. It is the escape route we take when emotions become too heavy to admit. And yet, those same words become the prison that keeps us locked in silence. When you say, I'm fine, you aren't lying to others as much as you are lying to yourself. It is a way of telling your heart to be quiet, your pain to behave, your fears to hide, your needs to disappear. You convince yourself that expressing your real feelings would make you weak, messy, dramatic, or inconvenient. So you swallow your truth, hoping it will dissolve. But emotions do not dissolve, they store. They sit in the corners of your chest. They settle in the back of your mind. They weigh down your spirit. I'm fine becomes a daily habit of emotional self-abandonment. Think of how many times you've said it when everything inside you was begging someone to ask again. Think of how many times you wished you could speak, but something inside whispered, no one will understand. Don't cause trouble. Don't make it worse. Don't be a burden. And so you slip into the emotional survival mode of pretending. But pretending is not coping. Pretending is drowning quietly while smiling on the surface. The courage to stop hiding behind "I'm fine" begins with recognizing why we hide in the first place. We hide because we fear vulnerability. We fear being misunderstood. We fear being judged. We fear being rejected. But underneath all these fears lies one deeper truth. We fear that if people saw the real us, the confused us, the hurting us, the overwhelmed us, they wouldn't stay. So instead of risking pain, we choose emotional invisibility. But here's what we forget: hiding your feelings doesn't protect your relationships, it starves them. No one can support the version of you they don't know. No one can hold a hand you refuse to extend. No one can meet a need you've never spoken. And the longer you wear the mask of "I'm fine," the more disconnected you become from the people you care about and from yourself. When you finally allow yourself to stop hiding, the first thing you feel is fear, because you are stepping into unfamiliar emotional territory. But right after the fear comes something extraordinary: relief. A deep, cleansing, soul-level relief. Because the body relaxes when the truth is spoken. The heart softens when the burden is released. And the mind clears when the pretending ends. Stopping the pattern of "fine" doesn't mean collapsing emotionally or sharing your heart with everyone you meet. It simply means giving yourself permission to feel fully and express honestly. It means when someone asks how you are, you pause long enough to check in with yourself before responding automatically. It means acknowledging your emotions without shame. It means allowing your truth to exist without needing permission. And yes, this shift takes courage. It requires you to stand in your feelings without labeling them as wrong. It requires you to trust that your emotional world deserves expression. It requires you to understand that vulnerability is not a burden, it is a bridge. Every time you choose honesty, even in small ways, you strengthen your emotional core. You grow more comfortable with yourself. Your relationships grow more authentic. Your connections deepen. People finally meet the real you, not just the edited version. One of the greatest tragedies of life is that so many people go through years of emotional isolation simply because they believe their truth would scare others away. But the right people are not afraid of your truth. They are afraid of your walls. They want to know you, not the mask you wear. Your vulnerability is not too much. It is human. It is the place where love begins, where trust grows, where healing happens. And something miraculous occurs when you stop hiding. You discover that you are stronger than you thought. You discover that your feelings are manageable. You discover that honesty is far less terrifying than silence. You discover that the world doesn't end when you admit you're not okay. In fact, your real life finally begins. The courage to stop hiding behind "I'm fine" is the courage to reclaim your emotional voice. It is choosing to be real rather than perfect, open rather than armored, human rather than hidden. And once you experience the freedom of emotional honesty, you will never again settle for the cage of pretending. Because "I'm fine" may protect you for a moment, but it also prevents you from ever being truly known, understood, supported, or loved. Your truth deserves to be spoken. Your heart deserves to be heard. Your life deserves to be lived out loud, not behind the safety of silence. The courage to face the emotions you've been avoiding. Every one of us carries emotions we've quietly pushed into the shadows. Feelings we told ourselves we didn't have time for, didn't have strength for, or didn't have the right to feel. These emotions sit beneath the surface like unsaid words, like unopened letters, like unresolved stories waiting for their ending. Some are rooted in old wounds we try not to remember. Others come from disappointments we pretend didn't matter. And some are born from dreams we abandoned long ago. We avoid these emotions, not because we don't feel them, but because we fear what will happen If we finally stop running, avoidance feels safe in the moment. It makes you believe you've outrun sadness, escaped anger, buried heartbreak, silenced fear. But emotional avoidance is like trying to outrun your own shadow. It follows you, no matter how fast you go. It shows up in your stress, in your irritability, in your sleepless nights, in the heaviness you can't explain. You call it tired, you call it busy, you call it overwhelmed. But often the truth is simpler. You are carrying emotions you haven't had the courage to face. Why do we avoid these emotions? Because facing them feels like stepping into the unknown. Because we fear breaking open. Because we think acknowledging the pain will destroy us. Because we feel unprepared for what might rise to the surface. Many of us grew up believing emotions must be controlled, hidden, or suppressed. We were taught to be strong, but strength was incorrectly defined as silence. So when pain appears, we bury it. When fear rises, we swallow it. When sadness knocks, we close the door. And every time we avoid an emotion, we create a deeper disconnect within ourselves. But here is the truth you must remember. What you avoid controls you. What you refuse to feel gets louder. What you suppress becomes the lens through which you interpret life. You cannot heal by outrunning your emotions. You heal by meeting them face to face with compassion, patience, and courage. Facing avoided emotions does not mean drowning in them. It means allowing them to exist without being judged or feared. It means sitting with the discomfort long enough to understand what it is trying to tell you. Emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers, each carrying insight about your unmet needs, unhealed wounds, ignored boundaries, and forgotten desires. When you listen, you learn. When you avoid, you remain stuck. Imagine sitting alone in a quiet room where you finally allow yourself to feel sadness without calling it weakness, or acknowledging anger without labeling yourself as too emotional, or admitting fear without believing it makes you small. That moment, though it may feel heavy, is where transformation begins, because the emotions you avoid are often the very ones blocking the growth you desire. Many people fear that if they open the door to their emotions, everything will come flooding out and they won't know how to stop it. But emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. They don't stay forever. The only emotions that linger for years are the ones we refuse to feel. The moment you stop running, they begin to release. Facing avoided emotions is also an act of self-respect. It is saying to yourself, my inner world matters. My pain matters. My story matters. It is giving yourself the dignity of being human. It is choosing honesty over denial. And it is creating the emotional space needed for healing to begin. There is nothing weak about admitting you're hurting. There is nothing shameful about acknowledging disappointment. There is nothing wrong with saying, this affected me more than I realized. Emotional courage is not found in pretending to be unbothered. It is found in having the bravery to confront what has been bothering you all along. One of the greatest breakthroughs you will ever experience is realizing that facing your emotions doesn't break you. Avoiding them does. When you finally confront what you've been avoiding, you reclaim power. You start to understand why you react the way you do. You identify patterns that once confused you. You soften toward yourself instead of punishing yourself. You create clarity where there was once chaos. And once the emotions begin to move through you, instead of staying trapped inside you, something extraordinary happens. You feel lighter. You feel more grounded. You feel more connected to yourself. You feel more in control, not because you've forced anything, but because you've finally stopped resisting. The courage to face avoided emotions is the courage to open the door you've kept locked for too long. It is the courage to let what's inside come into the light. It is the courage to let yourself feel, to let yourself release, to let yourself heal. Because healing does not happen in avoidance. It happens in awareness. And when you face your emotions, you don't break. You break open. You evolve. You rise. You begin again with a heart that is honest, open, and finally free.